As the war on Araxis shows no sign of slowing, the factions are always trying to find new ways to gain an edge in every combat scenario. The Vanu Sovereignty are of no exception to this, with their Carbine arsenal available to their light assault and engineer divisions. G'day there once again viewers, this is your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today guys we're going to be doing a Quartermaster's overview of the Vanu Sovereignty Carbines available in PlanetSide 2. Now, as always guys, with this sort of thing, we don't go too far into weaponry stats here, just a quick overview of how each weapon is going to behave here to give you an idea of which weapons you may want to explore a little further in game. Our specific weapon reviews that are here on the channel and on other content creators' channels will do a better job of giving you guys a more in-depth analysis of those weapons as such. And because this is something I see in every comment section of every video we do in this series, we do not cover Nanite Systems weapons or directive weapons in this series, only the weapons available to factions specifically that can be purchased with certs. But without further ado, let's dive straight into the selection of Vanu Sovereignty Carbines available in the game. And what a better way to start off than with the Solstice VE3, the guiding hand that sees the light of Vanu shown to the brand new entrance to the Sovereignty. This here carbine sports an incredible accuracy that simply doesn't understand the meaning of recoil, and also has one of the fastest reloads in the game that makes those quote-unquote tactical reload tests you see on YouTube look like amateur hour of many Planet Men as they get into the game, and rightfully so. In the weapon review that we most recently did for this weapon, I made some incredibly nostalgic remarks about it because quite frankly I have fond memories of using it, and its ease of use can simply not be understated. Cracking constant headshots here will allow for you to take the weapon a little further into your career as you continue to get better as an operative, but as you find yourself requiring more specialized needs and weapons for those needs, you may need to look at new weaponry options in the arsenal as time goes on. Just something to consider. Now, the Solstice SF is similar to all of the other S-Class weaponry that we normally cover here in the series. It features dialed down stats by comparison to its more standard cousin Solstice VE3. Now, admittingly, the rate of fire reduction of 46 rounds per minute here is the least brutal of the bunch when compared against the other factions' quote-unquote S-Class carbines. But we also have a reload time nerf here as well to consider. Now, all of this is in favour of an extended attachment offering including underbarrels and ammo changeouts. Now, this makes for an excellent companion if you want to get your weekly explosive quota in with some grenade spam. But with the introduction of newer weapons over the many years that PlanetSide's been around, the Solstice SF as a base weapon I'm actually finding harder and harder to recommend nowadays. I just find other weapons to not only fit the bill of being better for specific scenarios more often, which quite frankly isn't a surprise. The SF carbines are normally designed to be more average, run-of-the-mill, sort of, jack-of-all-trades style weapons. But even then, there are other weapons in the Vanu Sovereignty arsenal that I find to be better jack-of-all-trades weapons anyway. But we'll elaborate more on that in the video later on. Now, well, let's be honest, it wouldn't be a Quartermaster's overview episode if we didn't start talking about a burst fire variant of the default weapon, and that's where the Solstice Burst comes into play. The Solstice Burst is a close to exactly identical variant of the Solstice VE3, except, well, you guessed it, it's locked down to a 3-round burst. The main differences here are a slightly more varied vertical recoil per shot, but in favour of that, we do get a reduced first shot multiplier of 0.75 times, which means that essentially every time you initiate a burst with the burst fire variant, it's gonna recoil a little bit less to help you keep your crosshair on track. This makes the burst variant Solstice a great addition to anyone's arsenal who's looking for something that can, handle their trigger discipline for them, all the while maintaining very low recoil per shot and remaining consistent over multiple distances. The Pulsar C. This is a weapon that is just oh so universally loved. I don't think I've ever come across a single PlanetSide veteran who hates this weapon, whether this be my outfit mates or even good old mate Igor. I can even see him writing a comment in the comment section down below as we speak now. This is a weapon that takes a small note out of the NC's repertoire by being the only VS carbine that introduces a heavier 167 damage model, and when combined with its pretty controllable vertical recoil pattern that strays very little, and well, you have a recipe for total disaster for anyone who is on the receiving end of this weapon. Combine that with an easy to manage recoil pattern and you can start eliminating enemies in record time here. I bring this weapon up after the Solstice range first, because it is one of the clear outliers in the arsenal, and it's an outlier that I truly believe should be in every player's arsenal to be ready for all scenarios while playing as either a light assault or an engineer. Seriously, pick up this weapon as soon as you can, you will not be disappointed. The Serpent VE92, the closest you can get to the somewhat concerning screams that reflect that of the Darker you hear coming from the TR, and man does the Serpent pull it off nicely. This little bundle of joy sports the most aggressive rate of fire out of the entire arsenal with a nice and sturdy 845 rounds per minute, which makes for some incredible opportunities for getting in the face of your enemies and just, kind of melting it off. This level of power does come at a cost, however. The fact that the weapon does sport also the longest reload in the entire category, which makes this an optimal weapon for hit and run style engagements, less so for any kind of sustainability. Just an important note to consider in the grand scheme of things when using the Serpent. I often get a lot of questions about the VX6-7 where people ask me, "Yo Cammy, if the Serpent is meant to sport the best in class rate of fire, and the VX6-7 is meant to be a CQC platform, why would I ever consider taking the VX6-7 if I'm going to get more Darker out of my Serpent?" Well, I'm glad you asked, my fellow Araxium. The VX6-7... Man, do we need to come up with a better name for that thing? It doesn't roll off the tongue quite well. Anyway, it comes with a slightly improved muzzle velocity, reload time, but most importantly, hipfire accuracy. What does this mean for you, the end user? Overall, it's a platform that's a lot more capable of engaging targets in quicker succession, especially to avoid that longer reload, and has every capability of getting in cheekier light assault duels without hassle, and even if you're flying around as a light assault, hip firing down onto people below. Trust me when I say this, it'll be a true friend if you enjoy a more run and gun style playstyle, especially with an advanced laser sight equipped. Yes, it does lack the raw DPS that comes from the Serpent, but at the end of the day, you are going to be able to land more shots in a more concentrated area in more scenarios with the VX6-7 where required. Definitely worth picking up in the long run. I've had a lot of fun with this weapon. The VEC Horizon, a weapon that took me a serious amount of time to not only understand, but also learn to love. And it took a lot of people telling me that I was wrong about the weapon for me to be able to try it again and actually learn to enjoy it. This is a unique entry to the arsenal that uses a quote-unquote capsulate technology that splits its projectiles into 3 separate rounds that each deal a portion of the damage. When you fire from the hip, the weapon splits its projectiles into a fan horizontally. When you fire from the sight, the rounds fire vertically in a column. Now, this creates some interesting pros and cons for the weapon. A big pro is that you can simply paint a wider area in damage, hit more targets, potentially rack up more kills. The downside, however, is that if you're aiming for the head, there is a chance that you miss out on your maximum damage potential as your rounds scrape past the head or into the body shot zone of your target. But the real gem of the weapon is its perfect hipfire accuracy when airborne, which, and take this from a new conglomerate primary player, gives it a unique ability to be a right pain in the ass to take on in light assault skirmishes, especially when paired with unstable ammo. It's one of the few weapons I actually consider running unstable ammo on. Be warned, TR and NC troops, this is a dangerous weapon to come across. Right, so I've left the Zenith VX5 till last, and it's also the exact reason I gave the Solstice SF its big old caveat early in the video, and it's a very real chance that I was being unfair on the Solstice SF earlier on, I admit. But as it stands right now, I kind of feel like the Zenith takes the cake in the scenarios where the SF is designed to kind of be these days. Let me explain. The Solstice SF features a really moderate recoil and such, and still arguably a less aggressive recoil than the Zenith out of the box, but the Zenith sports a nicer rate of fire, a pretty agreeable reload time, a flurry of fire modes, and the same damage model, and can equip not only the compensator, like what the Solstice SF can, but also the advanced forward grip. And it has the same hipfire accuracy as the VX6-7. Oh, and just for the icing on the cake, it's the only VS carbine that sports a 0.75 times aiming down sights movement multiplier speed. It's just an all-round competitive package that is competitive in CQC and stretches to medium distances if need be. And while the Solstice SF can arguably stretch the range a little further, a little better, that role is already better filled by other carbines like the Pulsar and even the Solstice Burst. So as a result, the Zenith fills a nice middle ground in CQC to medium range departments, and one worth exploring for those looking for an easy to use jack of all trades. Kind of where I feel the Solstice SF used to dominate until the Zenith came out all those years ago. But guys, that does in fact bring us to a close for today's Quartermasters Overview episode on Vanu Sovereignty Carbines. Guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed today's video. There is a brand new voting document down below where you guys can go ahead and cast your vote on what weapon series we cover next in this series. Be sure to cast that down below, guys. It dictates where we go with the series in the long run. And as per always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure you backhand the like button, and if you're new to the channel, consider backhanding that subscribe button whilst you're at it. As always, guys, every little bit of support through the memberships goes a long way as well, so be sure to click the join button if you want to help the channel out further as well. And once again, guys, hope to see you all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you guys all in the next video.